Okay, so let's get into pivot charts and pivot tables. First off, we're going to go and open Excel. Maybe. In here, I'm going to create a blank workbook. I'm going to automatically go to File, Save As. And in here, we can save it to this PC somewhere. Doesn't really matter where. Or I can go to Browse. I'm going to go to Browse because I want to save it on my S drive. Okay, pivot charts and tables. Submit. Next, in the instructions of the assignment, it tells you to go to finance.yahoo.com. So I'm going to take us to finance.yahoo.com. And finance.yahoo.com, right here, I can type a ticker symbol or I can search for a company. Doesn't really matter. You pick your own company. In my case, I always use ADI for my example, as long as it takes my eye. Search. And okay, it did not take it. What is going on with my computer? ADI. Oh, there it is. Okay. Once you're here, it tells you to go and get historical. So over here on your left-hand side, it says historical data. You can click on it. If you look here, you have dates, you have historical prices, you can do dividends, stock splits, whatever you want. I'm going to do 5 years. Okay. And once it populates this, we'll download it, and it will download it as a CSV file. Okay. Then I'll show you what we're going to do with it from there. Actually, yeah. Let's wait for it. And if you scroll down, you'll see that there are, this is going slow because of me streaming, but you can see that there are 5 years worth of data there. Okay. One thing that we will have happen is anywhere there's a dividend, we'll have to find that and remove that. And I'll show you that as we go. Okay. But we're going to download it first. It downloads as a CSV file, as you can see. And I'm going to open it. Now here's a lesson from previous lessons. I'm going to right click on here. I'm going to move or copy. So I'm right clicking the tab. I'm going to move or copy. I'm moving it to Pivot Charts and Tables, Sheet 1, and I want to create a copy. Hit OK. So now you can see it switched me over to Pivot Charts and Tables. There's my copy. Now here's where things get interesting. Pivot charts and pivot tables are not that difficult to deal with. What they are for is to literally summarize the data. Actually, I think when we export, it automatically takes those dividends out. So I think we're safe. We'll find out. Anyway, it's a way of summarizing data in a very quick way. You can click anywhere in this table, absolutely anywhere. It doesn't matter where you're clicking. I just select a cell. You go to data, or not data. You go to insert, pivot table, or you can go to pivot chart. Pivot table makes just the table. Pivot chart makes the pivot table and the chart. I'm going to choose chart. If you notice, it put a marquee around all of the data. I could scroll all the way down to the bottom and it shows all of the data. You can see that it's going ADI. So this sheet, ADI, A1 to G1260. Okay. I'm going to hit OK. And here's our pivot table. Now it's blank. We want it to look better. We want it to have information. You got to remember, this is to summarize data. Summarizing data makes it useful, right? So first things first, I'm going to grab date. I'm going to drag it down here to rows, and you'll see that it populated the row values. I'm going to take just the high value and put it in column. Maybe I don't like that. Maybe I can take, I didn't want that, Control Z. Okay, I don't want that. I wanted it to summarize that. I need to take that out of there. Delete that. Remove field. Now, can I take... No, this is right. I wanted it to go where values is. I'm wrong. Okay. Take high, drag it to values. Sorry about that. And automatically it's summarizing the data. The total, the sum of all the highs together is 49,000, 52,000, but at the end it's 200,000. That's not really representative of what we're looking at, though, because what we're looking at are individual stock prices on a day-by-day basis. So maybe average would be a better option. So if I click this down arrow and I go to value field settings, you can see all of the different things I can show. If I put average in here and click OK, now that's the average score. If I wanted to compare that to the average low, I can take low. Right now it's sum. We got to change that. We're going to change that to average. And hit OK. So now they're both average. Now, I know that in the stock market we're talking about points usually, but for the purpose of this, I would actually say that we're actually talking about dollars. That's the cost per share. And I just summarized. And if I click quarter one and quarter two and quarter three, I can expand this. And if you look, it also expanded my table. Okay. So if I click January, you can see that it broke January down. That gets too complicated. Once you start breaking down by month, now you're back to single values. You're better off doing it this way. So I can say, well, when I compare the two, the high and the low for January, we can see that the low is smaller than the high value. So January seems to be a good month for them. As a matter of fact, all of these months seem to be a good month for them as far as their high. They end their high point is always better than their low. Well, I guess that's not a way to explain it. Overall, we would have to look at it back in quarters and knock it down like that, and we would be able to see that quarter one, it did well. Quarter two, it did well. Quarter three, it did well. Quarter four, it did well. Now, that doesn't mean that we buy it. What that means is that we can look at a trend as well. Okay. Can we add a trend line and stuff like that? I can put a trend line in there. Now you see that that stock is continuously going down trend wise. Even though it had a high here, it went down. So would I actually buy that stock? I don't think so at that point. Maybe if I went back to look at monthly, there might be a lot of buy sell points that would allow me to do some day trading in that and actually make money with this stock. We're going to add title for the chart, and this is going to be average high and low price by QTR. We need a title that means something, so I'm going to put a title on there. I don't have to say anything about these. These are pretty self-explanatory, and these are self-explanatory, so I think I'm good. Now, here's the question, and the answer is right here, okay? Sometimes we don't have to show the titles of what the color stands for of each bar. But in other words, we don't have to show a legend. In this case, we have to, though, because the legend is literally, we've got two things. There's a high and a low. If low wasn't in there, we might be able to actually remove the legend because we would only have one bar being represented for each item. So think about that when you're actually doing these things. Okay. So that's one way to summarize. Name that sheet. Rename, and we want that to be AVG high and low by QTR. Okay. And then I can go back to this data and I should be able to insert another pivot chart. Now, here's the thing. When I say should be able to, I might not be able to do it this simply. In one of the changes of Microsoft Office, they made a change that made it so you had to have a whole new set of data to be able to create a new pivot chart. We're going to see if that's the case here. I'm going to choose date, put that in the same spot. And in this time, I want to look at just the close, and I'm going to look at the average. It doesn't really matter because I want to test something and see if they fix something. Okay, so now if I go back to this one, they did fix it. In the previous version, for some reason, they had broken this. And if I added a sheet that did this, I could go back to this one and it would change this one to match the new sheet. This one here, I would just say AVG close. Okay. And right now you see by year, so I might actually want to classify that as by year, or we can break it up and do it by this. If I don't want year in there at all, over here, I can remove the year field, and now I'm back to just quarters. So the average quarter of out of all quarters, out of all first quarters, this is the average. Out of all second quarters, this is the average, and so on. Okay. Notice I've got one bar showing. I don't need that. I don't need a legend if all I have is one piece of data being represented. As soon as I start doing a comparison, I need that legend. In here, I would just say average closing value by QTR. Okay. I don't need to label this. I don't need to label this. I should change all of this to currency. And there we go. Now, here's the thing. You can do the same thing with this chart as you can other charts. You can choose a style if you want, just to make it look better. You can do custom styles. You can do just about anything you want. So if I wanted to, I could just change that. If I wanted to, I could change the color family of everything. Doesn't matter. I'm going to go back, and I don't like the green. Let's stick with that. Once you do that, you can still change the fill color to whatever color you want. You could do a gradient fill to make it look a little more a little more professional, if you would. You can right click on something like this and you can outline it, or you can change the style. If you want to, you could go to format chart title And in here, you could actually say that I want text option, solid line, gradient line. That's good. Text fill, no fill. I'm looking to see if I can get drop shadow. So if I wanted to, I could get a dark blue shadow. Notice how it gave me a dark blue shadow under that. I can change the distance of that shadow or how well it blurs. I can change the transparency of that shadow to make it harder. I can change the distance of that shadow to move it away. That's not necessarily a good idea. Right there, though, that looks pretty good. So anyway, same thing holds true with all of this. If I wanted to accentuate quarter two, I could select one of the bars and it gives me all of them. If I select it again, that gives me the opportunity to actually right click. It's actually on format data point right now. So let's actually go here and look for border. And we are going to put a solid line color. And the solid line color to make it stand out is going to be green. And we are going to change that with, so it shows up. So now we can say, okay, quarter two, obviously the average for quarter two over the past 5 years, it looks like a better stock in the second quarter than the other quarters. So maybe all of my buy point and sell points should be in quarter two, and I should stick it out until that quarter if that was the case. So anyway, just like with regular charts, if I want to, I can right click on this. I can move that chart. I can put it on a new sheet. AVG close by QTR. Say okay. I can move it to its own sheet, and there we go. Okay. So pivot charts and pivot tables and that aren't that difficult to handle. You can get more advanced depending on what you're doing. If you were doing sales and stuff like that, let's actually look at sales. Let's go back to our ADI sheet. We're going to create a pivot chart. So I'm going to insert pivot chart. And we are going to, in this case, we're going to treat this as if it was, I'm going to remove date because I just want to see quarter. Well, I got to do this first. And I'm going to use volume because I'm just going to pretend that this is total sales for a year. And then I'm going to remove this, remove field. And now I've got the sum, the total for each quarter throughout 5 years. Okay. If I wanted to, I can go back in here and add the year back in just by selecting here, and it'll throw year back in there. I'm going to move it to the top there. So now I've got years back in there, and I can look at total by year. And I want this to be currency or something like that. But what I can do is I can actually change this, and I can say show value as percentage of grand total. So all of a sudden, 2019 is responsible for 5.95% of all sales for the year, or for the 5-year period, or 6 years, or whatever it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, because it's splitting the year of 2019 and 2024. 2020 is responsible for 18.22%. All of a sudden, this chart doesn't make sense. This chart needs to be changed. So I'm going to go to right click, change chart type. And when we deal with percentages, we should be dealing with what? Pie charts, right? So I'm going to hit OK. And this is by year. I have to add something to this. I have to add the date of the years to this so you can see it. I'm going to go here. I'm going to add data labels. There's the percentage. I'm going to add something else. I'm going to actually add the years to that. So I'm going to click here, and I want to move them to the outside end. I'm going to also change and add the year to there somewhere. I got to look and see where I can do that. I can say label contains series name. Nope, not series name. Value from cells category name. Yeah. So now 2024, all that good stuff. And now we can actually go ahead and make this pretty just by selecting a different chart style if we want to. And I like these usually. If we were to move this, you notice how we have the ability to move the legend. In this case, the legend's not really what we want. I don't want to do that. So anyway, now we have a representation. If I want one piece of this pie to stick out, maybe the largest one, what I would do is I would select, the first time I select, it selects all slices. When I select it again, I hold down, I drag it out. Okay. It's not the most difficult thing in the world, but it's also not the easiest thing in the world. The whole goal is to try to understand what you're trying to show with the pivot chart or pivot table. If you can't show that, now we run into other problems. If you can't think about what you want from it, in the instructions for the assignment, you'll notice that I actually give you, as soon as I find it, that's not it. As soon as I go out here and I look at the assignment, I actually tell you what to do. Pivot table 1 is yearly summary of stock prices, open, high, low, and close. Okay. Chart 1, line chart showing the trend in closing prices over 5 years. Okay. So you pull the closing prices in there, you change the value to a percentage or what have you, and then you show a trend line and label it and make it look nice. Pivot chart 2, monthly average prices over 5 years. Chart 2 tells you a bar chart, quarterly volume traded, etc. So anyway, this is a video that kind of walks you through this assignment. I did it exactly how I had said. I want you to go finance.yahoo.com, find these, put it in the document the way I showed you, and then you will submit that document, if that all makes sense. Okay. If you have any questions, reach out to me, and I will do my best to answer them. As you can see, I was not actually planning on making this video today, but it's made. It was a pleasure seeing you. Hope you enjoy the assignment and actually learn from it. This is one of the most valuable tools that you will get from this class, believe it or not. I'll give you a little story before I let you go. My wife, she had gotten a new job about 10 years ago, and that job involved doing statistics for programs that get run through her organization. And when she first started there, the person before her was keeping track of all of the statistics in that through an Excel sheet or an Excel file, or multiple Excel files, I should say. And she would take the data from a system, she would plug it into Excel, and then she would do all these wild, elaborate functions and formulas and everything to get results. It took my wife approximately 7 days a month to accomplish that. I showed my wife pivot charts and pivot tables, and it cut that down to about 8 hours a month. They are a very powerful tool. Practice them, get used to them. If you don't already use them in the workplace, think about how you might be able to, etc. I mean, it's a really, really easy, sometimes fun way of summarizing data. Have a good day. How do I stop this? Okay.